Lies are part of human life. Small white lies, self-deception, and sometimes high-stakes deception. But can you tell when someone is lying? The short answer: sometimes, but not reliably from any single sign. Today we'll walk through what the science actually shows, physiological cues, police interrogation techniques, common errors people make when judging truthfulness, and practical, evidence-based tips you can use to evaluate statements more carefully. Let's start with physiology. Lying is not a single uniform act. It's a process that can involve cognitive effort, emotion, and attempts to control behavior. Because of that, lying can produce bodily changes: increased heart rate, shifts in breathing, sweat gland activation, small changes in voice pitch. These are real signals. They're part of the body's arousal system. But there's a crucial catch. These signals measure arousal, not deception. Anxiety, fear, embarrassment, or even excitement can produce the same physiological reactions. That makes it risky to assume that a spike in heart rate equals a lie. That distinction is why tools that try to read physiology, most famously the polygraph, are controversial. A polygraph records heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, and skin conductance, while an examiner asks questions. The machine looks for changes tied to relevant questions. But extensive reviews by independent panels show that polygraph readings are at best imperfect indicators of deception because they cannot uniquely separate lying from nervousness. In many countries, polygraph results are inadmissible in court for that reason, and scientific assessments recommend caution. In short, physiological signs are informative about arousal, not proof of lying. Next, we'll look at behavioral cues, the things people often think indicate a lie. Gaze aversion, fidgeting, touching the face, speech hesitations, or microexpressions. Microexpressions, very brief facial movements that betray emotion, gained publicity in recent decades, and they do occur. But interpreting them reliably requires training, and even trained observers make mistakes. Crucially, most people's guesses about who lies are close to chance. Classic meta-analyses of deception detection performance show average accuracy rates only slightly above 50%, worse than many people expect. Why so poor? Because people rely on stereotypes. They assume nervousness equals lying and confidence equals truth. Those shortcuts often fail. Police and intelligence services use structured interrogation techniques that are quite different from spotting a twitch. Modern evidence-informed interview approaches emphasize information gathering over confrontation. One widely used model is the cognitive interview family and other protocols that increase the amount and quality of information an interviewee provides. Some interrogation techniques aim to increase cognitive load, the idea being that fabricating a story while maintaining a lie is mentally taxing. For example, asking an interviewee to recount events in reverse order or to provide more detail may make lying harder. Studies show cognitive load approaches can increase detection accuracy compared with naive guessing, but they're not perfect, and they must be used carefully and ethically. A related evidence-based method is content analysis, ex post examination of what a person says. Truthful accounts tend to contain more specific, sensory, and contextual details, while deceptive stories can be vaguer, more generic, or contain fewer spontaneous corrections. Analysts sometimes use validated protocols, like statement validity assessment and criteria-based content analysis, to systematically score a statement's veracity-related features. Again, these are probabilistic tools. They tilt the odds. They do not guarantee certainty. Let's be specific about common errors you should avoid. First, the just trust your gut trap. Intuition is influenced by biases and social cues and often reflects thin slices of behavior. It can be helpful, but it's unreliable on its own. Second, the liar's posture myth. Many people believe that liars avoid eye contact and fidget. In reality, some liars overcompensate and maintain eye contact. Third, over-reliance on single cues. No single gesture, tone change, or physiological spike conclusively indicates lying. Fourth, cultural differences. Norms about eye contact, gestures, and emotional display vary widely across cultures. A cue that looks suspicious in one culture may be normal in another. So what does the science recommend when you need to evaluate truthfulness? First, gather context and baseline behavior. People vary. Establishing how someone behaves when relaxed and answering neutral questions, their baseline, helps you spot deviations that are meaningful for that person. Second, ask open-ended, non-leading questions that invite narrative detail. Third, use cognitive load techniques judiciously, asking for the story in reverse order or for sensory details. What color were the curtains? Can reveal differences between constructed and remembered events. Fourth, listen to the content. Truthful accounts are often coherent, include contextual detail, and are sometimes accompanied by spontaneous corrections. If you're a professional interviewer or a journalist, structured approaches and validated content analysis protocols are valuable additions to your toolbox. Training helps. Studies show that short training can improve detection accuracy modestly if it focuses on systematic interviewing and content evaluation rather than body language myths. There's also technology. Automated voice analysis, thermal imaging, and machine learning models trained on multiple signals are being developed. Some approaches combine verbal content features, voice frequency patterns, and physiological data. Early results are mixed. Machine systems can sometimes outperform untrained humans in restricted lab scenarios, but they can also overfit to particular data sets and fail when real-world conditions change. Ethical and legal questions are also substantial. Algorithmic models can be biased, opaque, and dangerous if treated as definitive evidence. For now, technology may assist but should not replace careful human judgment and due process safeguards. We should also talk about high-stakes contexts where the consequences of being wrong are serious. Courts, security screenings, and child interviewing. In those settings, the stakes require higher standards of evidence. For courts and law enforcement, that means corroborating evidence, documents, video, forensic data, not just behavioral inferences. For vulnerable populations, interviews must prioritize safety and minimize harm. Scientific bodies repeatedly emphasize that behavior-based assessments should be interpreted as probabilistic and used as one piece of a larger evidentiary picture. What about training you can use now as a non-professional? Here are practical, ethical tips. 1. Observe baseline. Start with neutral questions to see how the person normally speaks and moves. 2. Ask for narrative. Open-ended requests like, "Tell me everything that happened from the beginning," yield richer data than yes/no questions. 3. Probe for sensory detail and temporal order. Ask, "What did you see, hear, or smell?" And "What happened right before X?" Truthful memory often includes these specifics. 4. Watch for inconsistencies. Not every inconsistency proves deception. Memory is fallible, but major explainable contradictions deserve follow-up. 5. Avoid accusatory or leading questions. Those can create defensiveness and contaminate an account. 6. Be mindful of bias. Check whether you are interpreting nervousness, cultural norms, or social awkwardness as deception. 7. Corroborate. Where possible, verify claims with independent evidence. A short word on microexpressions and truth training. Popular claims promise that training in microexpressions will let you spot liars instantly. The evidence shows microexpressions do occur, but reliably reading them in natural interactions is hard, and training gains are modest. If a training program claims massive accuracy increases, be skeptical and ask for peer-reviewed evidence. Finally, the ethics question. Trying to catch someone in a lie has social consequences. In relationships, constant policing erodes trust. In professional settings, false accusations can ruin careers. Use these techniques responsibly. If you suspect serious wrongdoing, escalate to professionals, HR, investigators, or law enforcement, who work within legal and ethical frameworks. To summarize, there's no single magic cue that proves lying. Physiology and behavior can signal arousal and cognitive load, content analysis can shift probabilities, and trained interviewers using structured protocols perform better than chance. But all of this is probabilistic. The best approach is careful, methodical, evidence-seeking interviewing plus corroboration. If you found this useful and want practical templates, a 3-question baseline script, a cognitive load question list, and a short 1-page checklist you can use in interviews. Say, "Make me the checklist" in the comments. and I'll pin it in the description. Subscribe for evidence-first explainers on behavior, the brain, and decision-making. Thanks for watching.